Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, Francis Family Foundation, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, the H&R Block Foundation, Richard J. Stern Foundation for the Arts, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward.
This week, Arts Upload is curling up at the living room,
where Storyworks KC is mixing theater and investigative journalism.
We'll also show you how the 501st Legion dresses up for good and some different ways that public art is being made.
It's all ahead on The Upload. The Center for Investigative Reporting doesn't sound like something you'd see on a show about the arts.
But for the last few years, this Bay Area-based operation has been exploring new ways to tell the kinds of stories they excel in.
And Mike McGraw's reporting for the Kansas City Star about the 1988 explosion that killed 6 firefighters caught their attention.
The result is Justice in the Embers, a play written by Michelle T. Johnson that's being staged here at the living room.
If you're wondering how a journalist's detailed and methodical work becomes a living, breathing theatrical piece, well, this should help.
Cindy's almost a better person to have an extensive kind of showdown with about Brian's guilt.
At first glance, you might peg these two as old friends, catching up over coffee on an unusually warm December day. In reality, journalist Mike McGraw and playwright Michelle T. Johnson are new acquaintances, working hard on a very tight timeline. They're diving deeply into the tragedy McGraw calls Kansas City's JFK assassination.
Pumper 41, please answer.
Because everyone remembers where they were that early morning in 1988, when an arson-sparked blast shook all corners of the metro.
I started working on this story actually in 2006, and in many ways I'm still working on it. 5600102. Why did I dive in as deep as I did? I can't help myself. This case haunts me. There are so many clear facts that have either been ignored or not followed up on that I just can't let it go.
McGraw's reporting zeroed in on how, in the absence of eyewitnesses or DNA evidence, the government's case at the 1997 trials leaned heavily on testimony from individuals with something to gain from the system. Dropped charges, reduced jail time. Prompted in part by his articles, a federal review of the process yielded this 20-page document, so heavily redacted that almost nothing emerged intact.
And then they came out with a short summary of their findings, which basically said, the Star's all wrong, no one was coerced to tell a different story than the truth, number one. And number two, by the way, we did find 2 more co-conspirators that we believe were involved. In my way of thinking, the federal government, which spent 9 years on this case, has now said, well, we haven't completely solved it.
It's not surprising that McGraw's tenacity, who won a Pulitzer in 1992, eventually came to the attention of California's Center for Investigative Reporting. What was surprising was the method they suggested for telling his story this time. On stage, through a project called Storyworks, developed with the Tides Theater in San Francisco.
We've done projects in Storyworks that have been controversial before many times. Most recently, work-related death and injury in the Bakken oil fields in North Dakota. So, we're not new to the idea of controversial elements of this theater project. The facts of the play come from Mike's investigation, but there is an artistic element to it which opens it up.
It's that second part that, understandably, makes a stickler for detail like McGraw more than a little bit wary.
Because you feel like you're handing this infant child off to another person, and I frankly was fairly nervous about it until I saw the first draft of what Michelle wrote.
I heard one of the other guards call you Caller. Family name?
Nickname.
Those words, some already slightly revised, are being read aloud for the first time by a table full of actors upstairs at the living room. the edgy downtown theater that signed on to help create and stage Justice in the Embers.
On one side of the room every day.
It's great to hear the story fleshed out by real humans who take on trying to embody the character.
You did see that the female security guard working that night admitted under oath that she had burned a car for insurance money before.
This is a different process, I'd say, than other plays I've written on because two characters are fictional, but the bulk of people in this play are real. They have a real life separate from my play.
Trial lasted.
It's more of a tango than I'm used to. I'm more used to being the person who dances on the dance floor by myself, and if somebody wants to join me, they can. So it's a process.
A process that quickly moves on to getting the final cast in place. 2 actors from that first read are staying on, joined by 3 new players and a very short rehearsal schedule. With only 5 weeks till opening night, everyone listens intently as Mike McGraw fills in more of the backstory that's brought them together. And as he knows firsthand, the pain some firefighters still feel every time it comes up.
When you look into an innocence case like this, you're raising all of these fascinating issues that theater has dealt with over the eons.
Violate the 8th Amendment prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment.
You have a chance to dramatize all these issues that are huge issues in life.
With apologies to Shakespeare, the play is not the only thing. After every Storyworks performance, the lights go on immediately for an audience talkback that can last almost as long as the play.
And it's wonderful because we bring not only community members together, but experts in the field and attorneys and hopefully someone from Kansas City Fire Department, you know, so that we really get to talk about the issues that the play brings up.
Let's start at the top.
No longer bound by the table and armed with some simple props, the show's theatrical shape rapidly begins to unfold.
So often when we're creating new work in theater, it takes years. And what we're doing was we're saying we're going to make relevant theater that is responsive to what's happening right now in our society.
But epic as the story and the reporting may be, honing it to a workable hour has meant finding one aspect on which to focus. Brian Shepard's quest for a resentencing hearing. Shepard was only 17 at the time of the crime, which he still maintains he did not commit.
No matter how you feel about this explosion and who's been convicted, I think it's a worthy conversation to talk about how we treat young people and youth in our prison system.
Hi, Virgie.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. I want you to meet Nancy Marcy.
Wow. Hi.
The opportunity to meet the person she's portraying is a rare one for this theater veteran. From the outset, Mike's marveled at how much Nancy sounds like Brian Shepard's mother. So she's joined him today at Virgie's house in Marlboro to delve even deeper.
I think I was imitating Virgie, how I thought Virgie would say it, instead of how Virgie felt about that moment, and then just doing that.
Just a little.
I asked her, are you a little ornery? Oh, no, no. And then pretty soon I said, you a Spitfire? Well, yeah. And you could see the twinkle in her eye. She hasn't given up, you know?
You didn't do it.
Every day, lines are being added and dropped, facts continually checked, and new elements of sound and lighting design woven into the drama. Most notably the tribal drumming by Moses Brings Plenty. Then out of the blue comes something no one expected till spring. The Supreme Court rules that Brian's case, like 1,000 others across the country, can indeed be reheard.
When I first got the email from Brian's attorney, I didn't think of the play. I read it and I wanted to know more about the decision. And as I started thinking it through, I thought, oh, we're gonna have to rewrite the play in certain parts. We have to change the script.
That was just one more moving part in a series of a lot of moving parts. And that's where theater is very much like law and journalism. The show must go on no matter how anything else is going.
this play was written like it was on ball bearings because they were able to readjust so quickly when this happened. And you don't get the sense any of it's out of place.
The rigors of 2 dress rehearsals quickly give way to the thrills of opening night. And the living room is packed. This audience will see a 6th cast member, added in just the last week, to make a pair of monologues from a firefighter's point of view stand out more sharply. Everything else, including the post-show talkback, goes more or less according to plan, leaving the man who started it all with no regrets.
I can't see any way there would be regrets over this. I know how strongly some of the firefighter families feel, and I think they regret it, but I think if they sit through the play and watch it, they will see something different than they expect.
No DNA evidence? I even passed the lie detector test.
If I didn't get it before, we all got it tonight. I mean, there's nothing like having a whole bunch of family members who are emotional because we're bringing their people's story to a stage.
It's fascinating to me what putting journalism on stage can wrought. I think the more people that know not only about this case, but how the criminal justice system works and how sometimes it doesn't work in a perfect way, the better.
Storyworks KC, complete with audience talkback after every performance, runs through February 20th here at the Living Room. There's also a distinct possibility it'll be performed in San Francisco later this spring.
Now, costumes are, of course, an essential part of theater and the movies, but as our next story shows, they can also move out into the real world in a most enjoyable and beneficial way.
The 501st Legion is a volunteer organization whose members sew and build their own Star Wars wear to have some fun and help raise money for charitable causes.
$43 million worldwide so far. And as producer Ashley Holcroft shows us, some of that good work is being done right here in KC.
Charity auctions. They're usually known for offering some fairly lavish lots. Like this last November's Tiny Tim Holiday Fantasy Gala, enticing bidders with some 200 to choose from. Like a mink coat valued at over $5,000. A 45-minute lesson via Skype with Russian-born chess champ Gata Kamsky. A bat autographed by Salvi Perez. Or something described as a private movie theater experience. And for the high bidders of the latter, that affair unfolded on a magical, albeit frigid, KC night. Yes, their bundle included an appearance from members of the 501st Legion, an international league of film-accurate costumed Star Wars aficionados that boasts a robust KC tendril. And like for many members, Bill Holmes, or Boba Fett as he's garbed on this night, passion for the franchise was well in place before he knew of the 501st.
When I started building my first costume, I wanted to build the cool Halloween costume. Never dreamed that I would join the 501st, and I didn't even know what the 501st was. Then I thought, well, my God, this is really cool. There's a group of people that have the same interests in that, and that's how I got involved.
Although now a high-ranking member, back then he thought he'd troop, which is what insiders call event appearances, a few times a year. Well, that figure ballooned to upwards of 80. But although the 501st Legion is the largest, it certainly isn't the only game in town. In fact, there are 4 major branches that make up the Star Wars costuming universe, all of which have regional bases, starting with the oldest, the 501st Legion,
which does primarily the canon or movie, video game, novel, extension, bad guys for the Star Wars universe.
Rebel Legion
does the good guys, 2 sides of one coin, kind of.
Mandalorian Mercs
does canon, which is like Boba Fett, Jango Fett, Mandalorians, as well as you can create your own costume based on that culture and the lines.
Dark Empire.
Custom Sith, the custom Force-using bad guys. What we do is twofold things with all the groups. We build costumes. We try to do source-accurate and movie-quality costumes. What we do with these costumes is typically we do a lot of charity work.
You're probably thinking build means buy, but that's not the case. Although they are expensive, hundreds of man-hours go into each costume, and many of them start here in Bill's basement. And it's evenings like these that are full of creative solutions to uncommon problems.
Normally I don't do this in Jedi clothes. But this is actually mostly stained with tea and coffee. The one thing that was really cool about Star Wars was it was an old universe where things got passed down and transitioned from time to time. And as a prop maker, it makes it interesting because when you make things, a lot of times you start out with something new and you make it old.
War stories.
First time I built this, I sealed it shut.
Oh, no.
And I was on a stage with spotlight on me. It was like the helmet was getting soft from the heat from the light.
Oh my gosh. A little of this.
Oh, okay.
A dash of that.
Enough, you will go.
And a co-op paradigm.
We share each other's abilities and skills because there are things that some of us do better than others.
But even before the build, these fans have to figure out who they want to portray.
Picking a costume is I think a very personal choice. You have to decide what you're comfortable with. Are you comfortable showing your face? I'm not. Because I'm too animated, I sit there and I'll be laughing about something with my Stormtrooper helmet on. But they can't see me, I'm very, very serious. Or at least I have the appearance of being serious. So I tend not to pick what they call face characters.
Which brings up an interesting dynamic in what many presume to be a male-dominated genre.
It's almost nobody thinks it's a girl. So girls, though, are very happy when they find out that I'm a girl. If I talk to them and my microphone system picks up, they realize, you're a girl, oh my gosh.
All this effort is ultimately for one thing, to bring a little joy into the lives of people regardless of age who are facing challenges, like the Force Academy at the Arnold Palmer Children's Hospital in Florida.
One of the fellows in there, and he was like a 17-year-old kid. He was going through dialysis and everything, and we came in and he just lit up. The guy was all excited, you know, it's like, you just saved me, I'm so bored. And he just started talking about the new movie.
Or locally, when a little girl they met at Children's Mercy wanted to be a stormtrooper.
We came up with, and I'm not even sure how, child-sized stormtrooper armor. And we were working on it late at night. The next day was the opening of Planet Comic-Con, and she got to lead the parade with one of our members. To make a friend out of it, she is just right in my heart. I love her. The charity aspect, it's probably the best way that I've ever found to use my skills and my talents to actually benefit somebody else.
There are countless stories of the troop going above and beyond for those in need. But sometimes the Siths just want to have fun. And an event like this salute to John Williams at the Kaufman Center is just the thing. Complete with swordplay and a big finale.
Everyone lives a very mundane life, no matter how much they make, what professions they're from. They live a very ritualized life. We all do. And this brings a little bit of magic into people's lives. We're normal people that go to jobs, but we also spend time working with people in our communities. The rewards are from the smiles and making a difference.
The Living Room Theater started its life as an automotive showroom back in the early 1900s. These days, the elevators can take you between the different performance levels. Altogether, there are 3 of them here.
In fact, they even staged plays where the audience trails the cast around the building.
Provocative drama that pushes boundaries is the mantra, with lots of comfy couches to enjoy it from.
Well, here on Arts Upload, we explore things right down the street and all around the country.
In fact, these next 2 stories both revolve around public art and mass transit in one way or another.
One's in Boston, where an old roadway came down and new things have sprung up. The other one is in New York City and takes root in the subway.
With Kansas City's new streetcar line getting ready to roll, we thought these might get you thinking.
My name is is Kat Del Buono, and I am a video artist. The video installation is called Next Stop Wynwood, which is actually based on another project that I had started a few years back called Writers on the Four. If you went into the gallery space, you would have seen the two monitors, which had actual subway riders just sitting there. And what I had done was their video portrait. And in the background of the two video monitors, you would see a projection of a platform of a subway to kind of put you in the environment of being there in the subway, experiencing what the rest of us commuters would experience if you were on the subway. The way it had started was I approached these people and asked them, may I do your video portrait? And to my surprise, most of them said, okay. So I just filmed them sitting there, so you don't see them talking or anything. But then after, I said, now can you tell me something that you like about yourself?
Everything. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. I have my own CDs.
So I took that audio and put it underneath the image of them just sitting there. So you have your video portrait with the sound of the actual person talking about themselves. And the reason why I chose the question, I wanted to have the same question for everybody. Tell me something you like about yourself. Was at the time I was like watching reruns of Nip Tuck. And I don't know if you ever watched it, but the guys always asked, tell me something you don't like about yourself. And I wanted to do the opposite, because I never liked that question. And to keep some sort of conformity there, I wanted everybody to have the same question. That was the question I posed for them.
I think I'm pretty charming, smart, hard worker.
When you're sitting on the subway and you start looking at people, you start, guessing who they might be. Or you might see something that's attractive to you in some way, whether it's a physicality or something unique or something. And that's how I chose my person. There was something about them that attracted me. It ended up being, all different colors, ages, types, because that's what you get on a New York City subway. And that's what I love about New York is the diversity. So that's how the project ended up being as well.
It's a dream, really. The response has been overwhelming.
This is artist Janet Eckelman beneath a sculpture she spent more than 2 years creating. Spanning 600 feet at its longest stretch and roughly half an acre, it soars and breathes above the Rose Kennedy Greenway. For 50 years, an elevated highway ran like a gash right through downtown Boston, the central artery, severing one part of the city from the rest. But when the Big Dig brought it down, the Greenway sprang up and a land of opportunity was born.
I started looking at each of the buildings along the Greenway. My first idea was I used to, as a kid, with a piece of string, play this cat's cradle, where you'd link the twine together. And my thought was that when the Big Dig allowed for the highway to be removed, there was this volume of airspace, and I just wanted to make a cat's cradle across it. This was the middle of Boston Harbor. The city cut down 3 mountains to fill in this water to make this land. And those 3 mountains are these open spaces inside my sculpture.
After it was assembled over 10 hours early one Sunday morning, Eckelman titled the sculpture, As If It Were Already Here. Suddenly, the piece with its 100 miles of rope linked by more than 500,000 knots became part of the city's own fabric.
For me, it's personally rewarding to see it shared, to see people excited, taking photos and sharing them. The whole creative inspiration of others is something I hadn't expected.
But for the Greenway, it's all according to plan.
We've been kind of calling it internally our coming out piece for our public art.
Last fall, the Greenway named Lucas Cowan its first and only curator of public art.
Lucas, what's the role of public art in a very open space like this? Well, I think there's multiple roles. I think one of the biggest roles is actually to change the perceptions of the city in which we all live in.
Art has been a slow brew on the 1.5 mile long Greenway. Its most vibrant presence has been the Dewey Square mural, which changes annually. The Greenway is developing a 5-year public art plan, but Cowan says that includes no permanent pieces.
It's not so much based around the museum concept of hanging a painting on a wall. It's how you and the public can interact. Public art is meant to be touched. It's meant to be felt. It's meant to be experienced.
Cowan's pedigree includes 8 years with Millennium Park in Chicago, arguably one of the shiniest cities for public art in the country, with works that are now landmarks in their own right.
I would say give us a couple years, give us 10 years, and I think we can somewhat get there.
With the Eckelmann sculpture, it's now off to a thunderous start, even if the floating is fleeting. The piece comes down in October.
It's like the cherry blossoms. They are more beautiful because we know they're only here for a moment.
Well, let's see. Video and visual art, music, theater, dance, even Darth Vader. A little bit of everything this week on Arts Upload.
But our time here at the living room is now officially up.
We'll be back next week with stories about painter, illustrator Nina Gordon, and much more.
Till then, I'm Marcy Owen.
And I'm Randy Mason. Thanks for watching.
Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, Francis Family Foundation, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, the H&R Block Foundation, Richard J. Stern Foundation for the Arts, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.